Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Yo, hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with a pretty special list. This is a take on Green-White Maverick that was able to finish in the top 16 in the hands of Simon J in the European Legacy Masters, which is pretty sweet. I think in this day and age, doing well at a competitive Legacy tournament with Maverick is a huge achievement, and to do it with Green-White no less is pretty awesome. So huge congratulations to Simon. I don't think that should be understated, the achievement that it is. And it obviously shows that you have a lot of, knowledge of the metagame, knowledge of Maverick, and it's just super cool to see. So in this list, we have the classic Green Sun Zenith package. And of course, we have Knight of the Reliquary, Noble Hierarch for mana acceleration. We have endurance in case of anything too unfair from a graveyard perspective, also just for us as well to maybe recoup some Green Sun Zenith targets from the graveyard. Maybe put some lands back for Knight to finish. Really cool to see the use of Safekeeper as a green sunnable protection creature. I've been a big fan of this for a little while, especially with Mother of Runes, seeing Let's Play, just having that ability to be able to protect your Gaddock Teeg or your Keynote Curator against the decks that really care about it. So, I would say Safekeeper and Teeg against a deck like Eldrazi is pretty hard to beat, if not impossible. So I think that's really cool to see that. And then we have some 2-drops that are newish. So obviously Scythecat Cub has some pretty cool effects around landfall, obviously being able to make some of your threats into larger threats, itself into a big threat. But I think probably the best thing about Scythecat Cub in this style of deck is that it turns non-threats into real threats that your opponent has to care about. So let's say against Death and Taxes, Gaddock Teeg's not going to be doing a whole lot there. But if we have it in play and we start actually turning it into a real threat, our opponent might have to spend a Swords to Plowshares or another removal spell on Teeg. Whereas typically Teeg, not really an issue. We also have Scryb Ranger, a pretty sweet card. This can have, a real impact on opponents who aren't aware of it. Obviously against Wasteland, if you're able to save the land, pick it up, that's pretty sweet. With a card like Dryad Arbor, you're able to potentially, say, block a Barrow-Goyf, then return it to hand before damage, and try to, tempo some gameplay there. In the mana, we do actually have a combo finish. So we have Thespian Stage and Dark Depths, which I really like. I think for this sort of deck, you do want to have some sort of I win button, and I think that the Depths plan plays really well. You can obviously find it with another Reliquary, which you can find through Green Sun Zenith. You can also play both pieces back with Icetill Explorer. So a lot of play to it there. Talon Gates, still relatively new in the scheme of Legacy, but a fantastic card, especially in a build with Reclaimer, which I didn't mention. Also a way to obviously find the stage combo. Just a really nice way to make sure we're not playing too fair. And we do have a way just to be like end step, fetch for stage, fetch for depths, go off. Frenzied Baloth is a card that I actually have really liked. And obviously here we can see Simon's gone with 3 copies, which is a fair amount. This deck is typically filled with one-off hate bears, and I would definitely say that Frenzied Baloth is your typical style hate bear. So to see 3 copies definitely means that potentially Simon was expecting a lot of One Ring, which obviously the combat damage can't be prevented clause could potentially catch your opponent off guard. Potentially things like a lot of counterspell magic, so maybe Delver decks or blue-black decks, which might rely on counterspells to be removal spells in a way of keeping creatures off the board. So Frenzied Baloth as a double up is really nice. Obviously the Double green isn't always easy. There's a lot of, turn one starts where it's something like a forest into a Karakas or Savannah into stage. So it'll be interesting to see how this mana works out. But we do have Yavimaya, of course, which also really helps. Yavimaya, just another really nice way to be able to go turn 3 Dark Depths, turn 4 attack. So yeah, the list is really sweet. It plays a lot into the style of Maverick, which I like, which is obviously making use of both the lands package and also the creature package. There's a bit of gameplay to cards like Scryb Ranger and Scythecat Cub. So Scythecat Cub essentially has 2 different triggers. One is whenever a land you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, double the number of +1/+1 counters. So that happens if there's 2 lands coming into play this turn. What it doesn't kind of give you an understanding of is what happens if there's 3 or even 4 lands coming into play. And the way you can kind of take advantage of the second ability is, let's say you have another Reliquary online, you play a fetch land, you trigger the Cub, you fetch with the fetch land, you trigger it a second time. With that trigger in the stack, you can then maybe use your Knight to go and get another land, and then let's say it's a fetch land, fetch for another land. You get 2 more triggers to add 2 more +1/+1 counters on the creature you're targeting, and then double them. So there are some, little quirks to playing with Scythecat Cub, especially in a deck with the Reliquary, Icetill Explorer, Elvish Reclaimer, Scryb Ranger, of course. So let's hope this does pretty well. The last one I want to talk about is Knight of Autumn, which I assume is a little bit of play towards probably not so much the Fantastica decks, but more so Show and Tell with Omniscience. Omni, a deck I really have trouble against. I find a lot of the decks that I play are just a bit too fair, and the interaction we typically have just doesn't align that well with Omnitel decks. So obviously something like a Deafening Silence can slow them down, but isn't so much of, a Aethersworn Canonist or a Containment Priest. So we'll see how that goes. That is a great question. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, yeah. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is the first time and the third time and beyond in the same turn, if they happen before the second time resolves, you double the number of counters on it. So if you go a +1 counter, second land trigger, and then get another land, +1 counter, and then resolve that trigger, it'll see 2 +1 counters instead of just the 1, and go from 2 to 4 instead of 1 to 2. Hopefully I made sense there. And then to the sideboard, a lot of combo hate, as expected. We have Deafening Silence in a triple. We have Force of Vigor in a triple. I would say pretty fantastic cards to have on the play and draw against the Fnatica decks. We obviously have Disrupt the Flute alongside Thalia as well to do some things. So then we'll go there in against obviously the combo decks. We have Veil of Summer, which I would say is kind of a flex slot in my opinion. Obviously against the blue-black decks, really good. Any sort of decks where the Frenzied Baloth is going to be strong, I'm going to say Veil is quite strong as well. Collector Ouphe, obviously against a lot of the artifact-based decks that are coming out. We are seeing a lot of Painter, a lot of Emery style decks. So anywhere we see that, I'm pretty happy to obviously swap that in maybe over Teeg. Both are quite good against the sort of Karn Forge decks. But I think that Teeg is just a little bit better in that it turns off Kozilek's command as well. So it will be interesting to see if any situations come up where we can Green Suns for 1. That's the one downside about Green Sunning for Teeg when you also are in a matchup where you really want Ouphe as well, is that sometimes you'll then draw the extra Green Sun Zeniths and can't cast them because the Teeg's already in play. If you do it the other way around, obviously you can still Green Sun Zenith with Ouphe in play, but you might be open to more spells going on the stack if it is a matchup where Teeg is also relevant. But yeah, someone definitely fact check me about the Scythecat Cub interactions. Put it in the comments and I'll see what happens with this. But until then, I'm pretty happy to go live with this list and see how it performs. It does seem to me as well to be quite low CMC, which is quite nice. So I think we should have a lot of turn two plays, which is great, whether that's 2 spells or spell in Wasteland. Be happy to see how that plays out. Legacy League, we'll change this to Green-White Simon. Play points, nice. Gameplay. I believe Simon played 3 Force of Vigors in the side, which is pretty nice. I would probably feel a little bit naked right now with any less, but I think 3's a pretty great number. All right, come on. Hey, D Stinky, thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoy legacy content. This is a pretty solid hand. A lot of access to mana acceleration if needed. We have access to, obviously, Cub being really strong. A Green Sun Saga like Gaddock Teeg if we really need it. Reclaimer as a way to find Dark Depths, so pretty happy to keep this. Okay. Pretty happy just to see a forest. However, I would like to find a Swords Plowshares pretty quick, because I'm going to assume this is going to be Cradle control. So having access to swords for something like, let's say, White of the Reliquary is pretty interesting. So here, I think I actually just want to ramp with Green Suns, and then the following turn, Cub into Reclaimer. If we really need to, we can Green Suns into Gaddock Teeg, which would keep them off something like Natural Order or their own Green Suns. And I'm pretty happy to do it off the forest as well. That leaves the Verdant to be Dryad Arbor, a Jewel Land, Lush Portico. And I mean, the following turn, if we can double Cub, we could potentially get pretty aggressive. They find another land. Hey Ox, yeah, very cool to see this player obviously do really well. Just nice to see. You're going for a lot of mana, which kind of makes me feel like we should actually be going here for Gaddock Teeg, because obviously Cub into Reclaimer is nice, or even Cub into Noble to keep my mana improving. But I think just make sure we don't lose the game next turn to, say, a Natural Order. I'm pretty happy to play Stage into Green Suns for Teeg. We've already used now both our Green Suns, which is nice. They just shuffle back, but it means we have no dead cards in hand, which is pretty cool. There's a ton of Bayous. Very cool. That makes me pretty happy. Oh, there's going to hardcast a Traxxer. Okay. Nice. That is tough, but that is very cool. I was thinking like, Wasteland as well is really strong, especially on the stage. I was starting to think like, if they played the extra bird and Green Sun there, they were obviously trying to turn on the Cradle even more, so maybe they have like a hard cast Cradle Hoof Behemoth. I didn't think of the Atraxa. So now we really need to work towards Karakas. So if we go Cub, fetch, obviously Cub away, and then Reclaimer. What was shown? Ouroboros is pretty tough to deal with. What did they keep? Natural Order, Wasteland, Ouroboros. They might even have just like Ouroboros into Natural Order for Cradle Ouphe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Yeah. I guess they can't Natural Order, but it is going to be pretty tricky. I think we can't really even do the math, but I think it's just going to be Cub into Fetch, Reclaimer, Fetch. Happy to build up the Trample guy. It might even be too slow, because they're going to be attacking for 8, 9, 10, putting us to 8, and then, like, I guess we can Talon Gates, but the Karakas coming in tapped is pretty brutal. Yeah, very cool to see a turn 3 Atraxa. You don't often see that, but the way that their mana dogs lined up, they were just obviously able to done pretty well. Talon Gates is perfect because it actually allows them now to just most likely Natural Order for lethal, which is really tricky. Obviously, you think of maybe Karakas as an answer, but Talon Gates just has that little bit of play to it, which allows it to yeah, obviously do pretty well. All right. This will be tough without black, but it's definitely not the worst. I think really it's only the Doorkeeper Thralls we kind of look at in the sideboard. Disruptor Flute's interesting. Like maybe White of the Reliquary is just worth naming. It could be something that just does more than what's in the deck. Like I would say Night of Autumn typically isn't really something we're looking to do. I don't mind that Keen-Eyed keeps both their Reclaimers and their Whites at bay, and potentially also if they play Icetill Explorer. I think what I do miss here is extra removal in the board, but that is going to be fine. Safekeeper, probably not as important, but potentially if they're a deck with, say, Snuff Outs, that can be a little bit tough when we're trying to get there with, say, Cubs. So I don't mind keeping in the Safekeeper. I still really like probably an Endurance. I don't mind keeping one in the deck. Scryb Ranger is kind of interesting. It allows us to go after their mana with Wasteland while also being able to make use of our extra mana dogs. We did see Wasteland, which is quite interesting. So Dark Depths is going to be a little bit harder to deal with. Like the Knights. Could actually just be a Baloth. I think Baloth could easily be cut. I think we'll try out this. And go from there. Okay, turn 2 Knight, I don't mind. So I'm pretty happy to keep this. We have Wasteland for Cradle, which is pretty cool. Pretty aggressive start. I'm not going to fetch just yet. Fetch could be, obviously, again, Dryad Arbor, Lush, if we really need it. Okay. That's pretty interesting, because it gives me an option of Baloth and Wasteland here, which I kind of like. Although Knight is pretty interesting, getting that online especially. What is the role of Wasteland? The role of Wasteland, in my opinion, is kind of that I want to hold it for a Cradle. But if we get Knight down, obviously, it doesn't matter as much. Worst case is, say, they have, like, land, Snuff Out, and then also something. Don't mind Baloth beats. They spend a turn to improve their mana. I'm pretty happy to take them off that. Okay. Cool. Oh, wow. Okay. Cub's pretty nice here. Is Cub better than Knight? I don't think so. I think Knight is still just great here, especially if we can get access to Wasteland, especially after they've missed a land drop. So say they find a Cradle or something, I obviously want to be able to take them off that. So start with attacking. Then I will keep this just in case it comes up. The thought of keeping the fetches around for the Cub potentially. I mean, they're already at 12. Wonder if they even had like a Cradle in their hand but didn't play it in case of a Wasteland. Okay. Badgermole's pretty cool. Oh, now they just have, yeah, the turn 2 or turn 3 natural order. I kind of hope it's a Tractor. Okay. Just because we do have access. Oh, there's a Snuff Out, but they don't have a swamp in play, which is nice. So we will want to Karakas the Atraxa. Play the other Knight, most likely to play around that that one Snuff Out. They chose Misty. Endurance. Snuff Out, green. Ah, Springheart as well. Because of the enchantment. That's pretty cool. We draw Wasteland or Karakas, be very happy. Don't. Okay. Still think another Knight here is best. Tricky though, it could also be hold up the Boseiju to take out the Cradle in upkeep. But comes back. Then they still get the free endurance. Play a knight. Karakas. Turn this to hand. Attack with the friend. Just keep pressure this way. Storing Badgermole. Wow. Very interesting. Make a copy of Badgermole. We can just 6 here as well. They have endurance and obviously a pitch spell, so it's very hard for these knights to do too much. The Frenzied Baloth is really where we're at. Sun's full. Weary and Ranger, very cool. Untap the Cradle. That might even just be it. Yeah. Ooh, I still... Actually, another Green Suns? It could just be a Ouphe as well. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Yeah, nice. Tough. we had a plan, but obviously just not too much to interact with them. But I do feel like they held that Cradle for turn 3, which is a really nice move because it means that obviously, you know, playing the Cradle, you might not get a whole lot out of it. And if you have that sort of line of, yeah, going for with the Cub on turn 3, it really helps to save your lands for coming and play that turn. So kudos to them. Right, on the play, which is really nice, and a pretty sweet hand. Turn 1, Reclaimer. Turn 2, Cub. You have a fetch after that. Some removal in Swords to Plowshares is always nice. When it goes to 6. A little bit fair, but I think it has a really nice clock, which is great. Ooh, okay. Nice. Okay, not too bad. I think here we just want to go Forest into Cub. No great attacks, unfortunately. Okay. I'm not too fussed about that, which is nice, just because we have the Cub to fly over. We'll just fetch here. This allows us to hold up sword. Oh, I did not mean to attack with both. I kind of hope they don't. I hope they're thinking of like crop rotation blowing them out. I think they're really thinking like, why are they attacking with a 1-2 into a 3-3? It's going to be really tricky because now this also allows them to have the Saga. Okay, they're not going to block. Okay. I guess now we play the Hierarch and hold up the sword. Maybe the sword is just worth using on the Emissary right now. Do I care? Don't think so. I think we got to try to get there with this Scythecat Cub. Really tough. The tough thing as well is that next turn we'll have 4 mana for Icetill and then 2 land drops. But what we won't have is mana for swords as well. I nearly feel like we have to swords now, but I really feel like we have to swords the token, which is just a little bit unfortunate. I guess Cradle kind of could be the draw. Oh, interesting. Okay. Wasteland, whenever I needed you. That's not Wasteland, but that's pretty close. Let's have a good think. Do I even have the lands to get? Because I have 2 Savannahs here and a forest. We have a 3rd Savannah. No. We have 1 forest. That's actually it. We can't even get a... There's no plains. We can't fetch a plains anyway. The double fetch doesn't actually mean anything. Well, the double fetch means that we can't play the Icetill and also Boseiju. I think the next best thing is just to go... play the Misty. A world where I put him on the Noble Hierarch. 1, 2, and then attack with Exalted. Put them down to 11. Is that better than trying to build up the Scythecat? Probably not. But it's definitely an interesting play. Okay, this means I could get the Lush because we have 2 for Boseiju, 2 for Reclaimer, and then none for swords, or we just get the forest and then we have all. I think we go for that. We just want to Boseiju now. Hey Sato, very cool to see you. Hope you're doing well. I think here we hold up the Reclaimer to go and get Wasteland. I think that's better than attacking. And I think we just hold the swords in case we need it for something a little bit bigger. Maybe that's incorrect. Maybe the Pinnacle is where we need to actually start. So if they play another Saga, we'll definitely respond to the trigger. Loki. That's a pretty good sword target. Okay. Does this have flash? It does have flash. That's insane. Right. Get rid of a forest. Would get a wasteland. Cub. Have it. Very tricky. think we play the Misty. We're definitely attacking. Then they actually just have lethal in the air? No, because this is not a flyer. This is when it leaves play as well, so they want to hold up 4 mana. They get to tap the cat and they have 2 blockers. We'll definitely get Lush. This is where a Sajiri step would actually be pretty cool. Stage. Is there a way? Oh, can I Talon Gates both of these out? And that gives me enough? What if we go Talon Gates trigger this? This. Oh my gosh. And then what if we Wasteland our own Talon Gates and then play the Talon Gates from the bin to double counters this and get rid of this? Oh, we just get there. I believe we just get there. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I love finding lines. Very cool. I'm sure there's some small things we could have done like a previous turn, but very cool to get there. Very, very nice. All right. We love the Force of Vigors. If you're not following, give me a follow. I would love that. I would very much appreciate that. We can go to the Teeg here. I don't mind the Endurances, given that they're playing Emery and also just the Flyers. It's nice to keep them down. I do obviously like the Collector Ouphe, which can kind of come in instead of the Teeg. It's pretty tricky. Like the Doorkeeper Thralls are interesting as well. Like the ETB effects, potentially. The Forces are fantastic. If I can also answer Emery and Loki with a Karakas without them getting value, that's pretty awesome. I could see like a Knight coming out. It's good to just know of the Knight of Autumn as well. Safekeeper, I don't mind alongside the Ouphe. Icetill, like Frenzied Baloth, so a nice because the trample, but we do have the Cubs for that as well. I could say these nearly go out. I'm not sure if they're playing the ring. I probably don't mind just one in the list. This is a nice-ish. On the play, it changes a bit as well, but I think this is pretty good. Nice. Like, I think Deafening Silence on the play is reasonable. The thralls are really interesting. Maybe they... we did see like some welder vibes. I could see just some little cuts like this and just see how this goes. I've always wanted to try Doorkeeper Thrall against these decks, and I think it can be okay. I think it's in a fantastic position for Maverick because it makes your opponent actually use the mana to cast the spell, and then you get to Doorkeeper in response. Whereas if you have something like a Torp Rob in play, they're obviously not going to commit to the creature. Pretty fantastic hand. We have access to turn 2 Ouphe. We have access to Force of Vigor if needed. Wasteland as well for Saga. Saga, apologies. Pretty happy with this hand. This hand is a little bit weak to an Emery start of something like an island. But otherwise, we're pretty great. Even to have the Keen-Eyed, in case they start in like a welder line, we're pretty happy there as well. Okay. I only see Savannah, which is pretty nice. I think because of this start, I'm pretty happy just to go Noble Hierarch. Pass. There is a small thought of Blood Moon, but I think because we have the Force of Vigor, we're pretty happy. Especially if they go... Oh, they went this first? So now we actually get to go after... So we can either go after their mana here, or we can just go for Ouphe next turn. I think I'm pretty happy to go for Ouphe next turn. I'm just trying to think what they might have here. Like, do we want to turn off this Moxen beforehand? Like, what are they going to cast off this that we're going to actually lose to that the Ouphe is too slow against? This pause as well obviously gives away Force of Vigor. But I think I'm not... I think because we have the mana acceleration as well, happy to try to cast the Force of Vigor down the road and hopefully get a turn here where we can obviously Ouphe. Cradle is pretty perfect. I'm trying to think about options here. I think we just want to go Ouphe into Keen-Eyed. We could have also gone Green Suns for Safekeeper, Cradle into Ouphe. That might have been the line if we were thinking about Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt specifically. Or them... I guess they can't really untap and do something, which is great if this does resolve. It has to be something like a Fury. Which Keen-Eye's really nice as well, because then they can't take, say, Ouphe and Keen-Eye. They'd have to take Ouphe and Noble. We have 3 cards left. Definitely taking this out. Okay. And then I think we're just sitting back here. The other thought is we just go... Green Suns for Safekeeper to protect this stuff, even from a Fury. And then we eat... say the Saga because it's 2 types, and then we hold up mana here, and then we just have Force in hand. And we have a really nice situation going. Our opponent just didn't have a fast start, and I think they really need that against this hand. Especially one away from creatures and more towards value. Something like an Emery. But you never know. I'm also not even going to eat. They actually don't even have a mana for it. Yeah, really tough spot for them. Nice to definitely come back and tie the score 1-1. But hey, a huge thank you to all of you coming and watching. I very much appreciate it. I've been talking about consistency for a while, but life's just been busy. And I haven't been able to get it as much as I like, but I think that the only way to get consistency is to start again, and this is definitely the way to do it. So I very much appreciate it. Bit of an unknown hand. We kind of have a spell in Wasteland. Green Suns to obviously find whatever we want. Potentially Endurance gets there, but if we find another land off the top, we're pretty unhappy. So I'm pretty happy to mulligan this and find a hand with a plan, which this one does. I'm probably pretty happy here to drop the Icetill and then play with a nice low curve. Obviously once to potentially find another mana. Pretty happy with this. Whenever I see Bloodstained, I always think of Reanimator. Okay. I'm not going to once in response. If they want to take the once, they can take the once. If they take the Keen-Eyed, I think that says a lot. Big shout out to Be Excellent. Definitely check out their legacy content if you haven't already. Fantastic content. Fantastic attitude towards the game as well. Really cool, different ideas. What do we find? I actually don't just mind the extra land. And now we get to go for a Savannah. I could just go for... I think Savannah's fine. I was going to go for a basic if I thought this was some sort of Wasteland deck, but I think I'd rather have access to like swords off the top and then be able to Wasteland the same turn. Okay. Wasteland puts us a little bit behind, but I don't mind it when they haven't cast, say, like a Ponder or Brainstorm yet. But this is probably a matchup where I'd want to see the forest. So if they go like Wasteland into land, we see it. What does the Ponder do? Ponder isn't a shuffle. Okay. Pretty happy just to play the forest and play the Keen-Eyed. Kind of hope to draw another spell, so I don't play the Cub into Daze and then play a land. I'd love to be able to play around that in some regard, but I think if they Wasteland us, we don't really have a chance. Obviously here, really want this fetch land for white mana. That is very timely. We're at 3 cards. I think we are somewhat the beatdown here. So we need to win this before they get another Barragoyf into play. Our chances of finding another sword is pretty light. Okay. Does give us access to Talon gates. No attacks. Interesting. Sadly, this doesn't help with mana. Means we probably just want to hold back here because it takes some mana to be able to make a white. I don't believe this list is playing a forest. Just the 2 forests. Still nothing. Interesting. I do have a clock in the air with the brazen. I guess if the Barrogoyf they trades with a blocker, it's really just a murder. It doesn't, if it doesn't draw a card, it isn't as bad. They do gain life as well. But I think sometimes I'm more scared of a Barrogoyf trading with a creature of mine than I should be. Wasteland not too bad here, because it's really just a white source we're looking for. On fetch land. No. I think... I don't mind holding up Reclaimer. Am I? I was going to go get Lush to be able to turn on the Knights. But I kind of like just the thought of being able to play the Cub. And then next turn, if we draw a land, we get to play the Knight. My thought is maybe they didn't keep Days if we have Reclaimer in play to use this mana with. Might just hardcast it. Tamio. That's a pretty... This is actually the first Tamio I've played against in probably maybe 5 leagues. Maybe even more, maybe close to 10 leagues. Which is quite fortunate, I will say. No white source. Tough. Okay. I like the Veils. I like the extra endurance. That's kind of it. I think the Gaddock Teeg can go, the Knight of Autumn can go, and probably the Safekeeper. It's not really where I want to be fighting. I think otherwise that's pretty good. There's a thought on the Thalias. They do obviously have Bowmasters, but they have a lot of targets. They don't have a lot of targets for the Bowmasters, but it is something. I think the Scryb is just fine to keep in, especially against Wasteland. On the play, which is nice, and probably not a keepable hand. Just can't really cast too much. Really relies on the Reclaimer sticking around, which I don't like. Pretty much the same hand, but let's keep this. Bottom the Endurance, and let's start with the once, because if we hit a Mana Dork, we obviously want to cast it here. No, but we do find a Misty and a Forest. I also don't mind Misty. The tough thing here is that we actually can't Misty for a white source because the 2 Savannahs are in hand. The Misty has to go for Lush. So I think we actually just go for the Forest, unfortunately. And then it's a case of like turn 1 Swords against a Tamio is kind of nice. But if it gets Wasteland, it's kind of annoying. But probably not the worst thing. I think the upside of the Swords is just a little bit too good. Okay. I don't mind just trying to get a cub into play here. I don't mind trying to play the cub around days, get the value. And then probably just hold the green suns for now. We'll probably need another threat. Pretty happy to get a Baloth here, if possible. How are we going to force it? Harbinger of the Seas. Because they didn't like Orc, Pip, and then block with the token, I'm going to play the Dryad Arbor. So I feel like they don't have a Bowmaster. And I want to play somewhat around like a Edict effect. I'm also not going for swords. A little bit tricky because they have the mana to like draw a card, but I think this is fine. The knight being a 2/2 on turn 6 is pretty nuts. That's another land. A Murktide? Deluge. I can't do anything about that. I'm going to untap and see what we draw. Fortunately, there's not too much I can do there. I'm going to hold this card as well, just in case they rip a Thoughtseize. Play the Yav and hold the Talon. Like an Endurance off the top would be great. Ugh. Okay. Interesting. Icetill is interesting. Don't have the mana for Icetill unless I play the Talon Gates, but I kind of want to hold the Talon Gates back. Maybe it's just an endurance. Then like Daze gets me. Could just be another Baloth, honestly. That also somewhat turns on the other creatures being uncounterable. Interesting, they kept the Ponder and now went for Brainstorm. Yes, we play it. Dryad Arbor's in the bin. Can't fetch that. We can get a Talon Gates. So we can get a Lush Portico and go from there. Right. Good enough. I don't mind trying to just keep it out of play for now. All right. Gotta start somewhere. Like a Baloth here would be pretty cool off the top, especially with Exalted. We don't actually have a way to get rid of the Grafdigger's Cage outside of Boseiju. Oh my gosh. See, at least now they're using a push on a Noble Hierarch. Somewhat a small win. But I need something just a little bit bigger. not too much we can do there. It might just be writing on the wall. Tricky. Really tough. Like potentially like if the deluge has to cost a little bit more, but even then, like the knight, even as like say a 4/4 or a 5/5, it's only 3 more life. Kind of a great way to compete on the card advantage that deck has. And even Tamiyo, even a 0/3 creature can be really tough for this deck to sometimes get through without Exalted. And even with Exalted, just some really nice, nice removal in black. It's a little bit too hard to deal with. Up against Phil. Very cool. I think I'm pretty happy to keep this and see where it goes. Kind of like the thought of Misty into Savannah to turn on potential, like, you know, swords off the top and also Wasteland. Still goes to 5 cards. Right. Misty. Savannah. Emma. Ooh, force down to 3. Okay. I wouldn't mind a Mana Dork. That would allow me to Wasteland as well. That also gives me a little bit of play, which is nice. This means I don't have to get the Keen-Eyed down. I do have access to Endurance, of course. I also like the thought that if this is a graveyard deck, then having access, like playing the Keen-Eyed, maybe forcing them in to go off before I untap with mana, but then having, you know, Endurance in hand is kind of cool. Ancient Tomb is scary. Maybe Show and Tell? Lock up. Okay. Wow, if I attack for 3 next turn, put them down to 13, and then they use the Tomb to go to 11, we do then just have lethal the following turn with Keen-Eyed eating 4 things. Land, creature, instant sorcery, and then also the Knight. Ooh, Wasteland's pretty huge. Pretty happy to try to Wasteland here. Just in case of like a Murktide, I'm pretty happy to eat this now. Actually, I'm pretty happy to eat both. 3 cards. Interesting. Yes, they have. Get to attack. And sadly, nothing. They do have some sort of way to go off here. They did play it last turn without needing to, but they obviously didn't find it. The legend rule doesn't apply to creatures you control at the beginning of combat on your turn if you've cast a non-creature spell. Create a token that's a copy of Council of Reeds. Interesting. I don't mind the Disruptor Flute. I don't mind the Veils. Deafening Silence doesn't really stop it. I think we can take out Endurance. Probably Teeg. I don't mind the Icetill, given them their mana. I definitely don't mind the Thalias. I think I like the Force of Vigors. I reckon this is like, surely has a backup plan of artifacts. Which kind of makes me want to go down on the Endurances, down on Safekeeper. A Reclaimer, a Knight. I don't mind this. The Scryb Ranger is kind of cool. Maybe the Ouphe over the Teeg. Something like this. Damn. Wasteland start. One piece of the combo. Interesting. It doesn't do a whole... Like, we have mana acceleration. We might have a threat. We have some interaction potentially if they are not just islands. I think we could potentially do a little bit better. Or I think we still have to keep it and just hope. Icetill and Keen-Eyed. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't even have a great way to play around that, unfortunately. We have the Deafening Silences. Maybe these come in. Maybe the Knights go down. Probably the Icetill, this sort of deck. I think just the extra Reclaimer. Yeah, because even our best draw is potentially Force of Vigor, which deals with 2 of the artifacts, but nothing else. A little bit slow. I think we can mulligan this. Oh, tricky again with both Cradle and Arbor. I think we need to go to quality hands over quantity hands. And so most likely mulligan this. So it's really going to be like a Force of Vigor or a Deafening Silence start. Okay, keep. Bottom. Might just be the stage. Bottom. Okay. I think here we just go. Uh, feel like we can do better. Really tricky spot. I think I have to block. I think I have to block with the Dryad Arbor this turn. And then after that, we can start blocking the Barrow. Creature, right? Yeah, they haven't actually returned a creature just yet. Wow, no attacks. Interesting. Oh my god. Okay. Tapped incorrectly, didn't I? I did. Tough. I didn't even think. Yeah, one of those small things that definitely adds up. For some reason, I just thought I had a white open, but I did not. That is okay. I think here I'm pretty happy just to chump. Interesting they didn't do this at the very start to get tokens. And they did imprint as if they have a removal spell for the Ouphe. Ugh. Hmm. Okay. Take a force. And then I can Boseiju the Chromox if I really need to. think my way out of this is just 2 hits with Marit Lage potentially, if possible. Let's see. I don't think we have a real out from there. I think the Dark Depths are just too slow, and they can just go wide on the tokens quite easily without the Thalia there. Tricky. Cool deck though. Pretty cool to have that commander card alongside Fantastica. It's just another way to make use of all your spells. Yeah, trying to find like Deafening Silence, game 3. Like could have gone to 4, but I think that's a bit. I think like 5 cards you can sometimes find like a quality hand, but 4 cards is really stretching it. So it has to be like 2 lands, Deafening Silence, 2 mana threat, which is a lot of specific cards. Hopefully we can finish this off with a win. It would be really nice to give Simon just a little bit of a... Yeah. I think the one thing tonight has potentially just been the difference between the online metagame and the paper metagame that they were expecting. The obviously less access to lanes has come up a fair bit. And one thing this deck doesn't have, because it has no planes, is no windswept heaps. So potentially looking to look at the more unfair blue fetches as a way not just to give off that you're on a fair deck, or quote unquote fair deck with windswept heath. Pretty easy mulligan decision here. Not doing a whole lot with this hand. Unfortunately, the tapped mana here is pretty huge as well. And I think might even be a mulligan, because it's going to be like turn 1 Lush, turn 2 Hierarch Wasteland if that's relevant. I think sadly just a little bit too slow. We can most likely keep this and bottom a Knight and an Icetill, or even the Talon Gates Icetill. But again, quite slow. Somewhat happy to see this. Could mean it's some sort of fair matchup. I think what they get will give us a big sign of what's to come. I think off the Once Upon a Time, we probably just want a mana dork to be able to get towards Knight. Ooh, okay. Maybe Depths? We're down to 2 cards. I think if we find Wasteland, we don't. Do you find Reclaimer? Reclaimer is a play. And we can do it off the forest, which is... I wonder if this is just going to be regular land. Surely they have another land. Surely it's not like a lone back Wasteland. Okay. Sadly, a little bit slow Keen-Eyed. But not the worst. No great attacks because they'll have a 2/2. That'd be nuts if their hand was Mox, Land, Loam. That'd be pretty sweet. Or even if they could get a Mox, pitch a land, play a land, Loam. The land, Loam would be really solid as well. They go for Needle, which I don't mind, seeing that we have 2 Knights in hand. I assume they go after the Keen-Eyed. Reclaimer, okay. Interesting. Wow, no attack. They didn't even want to see. I think here I rather just play a Knight than get down anything. Sorry, than hold up the Keen-Eyed. I think getting Knight into play is just so strong. Especially if they do have depths, we want to have access to Karakas. There's depths. No attacks, so no like crop for bog. Endurance is pretty nice as well. I think here we're just going to pass. With Endurance open, Swords open, Knight open. Now I feel like we're in a really strong position. Like Boseiju Bog isn't that bad. Double stage is fine. We get to start eating their graveyard. I'm just gonna keep the Knight up here. Okay. I kind of feel like again we're just gonna pass with open mana. I could play the Knight. I'm trying to think where does, like potentially like if they have Swords main deck. Swords doesn't do it either. Definitely go to second main. They have 2 cards. They obviously need 2 mana for depths. They have a Wasteland spare. If we play a Knight here and they go for it, we obviously have access to both Wasteland and Karakas. I think it's okay. This is fine. So allow this. They choose which one to keep. Now this triggers. And now we can get rid of the Savannah. Wasteland. And now Wasteland this copy before they can sacrifice it to get their 2020. I guess what I did open myself up to is Swords on the Knight. I have to use the Knight for either Wasteland or Karakas. If I get Karakas, they Wasteland it first, then go off. If I get Wasteland, they Wasteland the Wasteland, we Wasteland the stage or the depths, and then they can go off again. So that did open me up, which is, yeah, not great. The issue for them is if they loam back these, we still have the same play, and now we have a sorcery for Keen-Eyed. Hey, Ethan MTG, a huge thank you for the raid. Hope you're doing well. A big thank you to all of those coming in from Ethan's stream. I'm Dukes on Twitch. I typically stream fair decks in Legacy. We're currently up against lands. Ethan, what did you play? What format? What deck? And how did you go? Interesting. They're going to crop. They can go for it here, but we do have access to obviously crop Knight into Karakas. Modern Prowess, 7-3 in leagues. Very nice. Is Modern Prowess a mono red deck or is it red blue? I assume like red green for mutagenic growth as like a base. Okay. Thank you very much. Typically, is it in growths? Very cool. All right, there's Karakas. Turn this to hand. We will use that extra to eat Dark Depths. There is a world where I could attack. And then fetch for a Savannah. But I don't want to get got by something like a Cropper Tabernacle. Wasteland Tabernacle me. So I think here we're just going to hold back. I think if they try to Wasteland the Karakas, I'm happy to turn the forest into a Yav and then use the... Oh, we can't use the Reclaimer. Okay. Adaland. If they Wasteland me, I'm pretty happy to Endurance them, evoking it with the Teeg, as the Teeg is pretty irrelevant. And then we can actually eat the Endurance with the Keen-Eyed to make it a 7/7. Loot. Let's do this now. Let's Endurance pitching the Teeg. They have 0 cards in hand. Hit them. And then with Flute still in the stack, we want to eat Endurance. And then I think here we actually want to turn this to a Misty. Now we do just have lethal because we get to either swords 1 attack with all or Misty swords untap swords. Should have also responded just because of this adding an additional 2. That was just a misstep. Yeah, really tough spot by them. Endurance and Force of Vigors are fantastic. That's probably it. Like, the Teeg is a pretty easy cut. The Sylvan Safekeeper. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick, but let me know. I also don't mind taking out the depths, but leaving in the stage. Give me your thoughts. I'll be back in a second. Endurance, Force of Vigor, we took out the depths, we took out the Teeg. Like, I think the Frenzied Baloth can probably go. Potentially the Ouphe is worth it, or even like the Flute. I don't mind Flute, especially on Saga. Saga can sometimes run away with the game, but we do have the Force of Vigors, so... Interesting hand. This is Simon J's list. Yeah, Simon did really well at the recent European Legacy Masters, which is cool to see. I haven't been able to find them. I haven't been able to find a way to contact them. But I'm glad they chose the fair fight. A little bit tough on mana, but I think we could potentially get there. I'm able to keep it on the draw, just because we do have an Endurance and Forces as well. Opponent's gone to 5 cards, which is a little bit tough for them. Cool, I lost to him at EML, messing up combat math and underestimating Cubs. Still, those were good games. Yeah, Cub's a tricky one. I'm not sure if there was like a moment in the game where they were able to get more than 2 triggers and were able to like stack the triggers before the doubling resolved. But yeah, Cub is sweet, especially allowing you to go obviously wide with creatures that typically you can't go wide with, like Noble Hierarchs, getting things out of say Orcish Bowmaster range. I really hope they don't go Saga next. Okay, they don't. Interesting. I almost want to be aggressive on the Mox. But I don't know what I'd... Probably the Frenzied Baloth is what I'd pitch. No, I think I'm happy to wait one turn at least to know what we're drawing into. Yes. Yes, that is very fair. Here we want to get Lush, just to be able to have a look for another green source. Perfect. Now we want to go wide with our jewels, and then probably just play the Keen-Eyed. Dismember. Okay. That's fair. Like one more turn. Nice. There it is. There's the value. Like, obviously, a crop in response is pretty cool, but to force the crop is nice. Hey, very cool. What did you play in the ELM? Yeah, Maverick is sweet. Maverick is a very cool deck. Some hard lessons learning it for sure. Yeah, just a sweet deck overall. Right. If I draw a Yavimaya, I don't want to play it, obviously. But here we're just going to go for the Knight. They have one card in hand. I think I'm happy to tap out from interacting with Loam in a profitable way with Endurance, just to get this Knight into play. It is interesting seeing the Dismembers, because potentially you hold up the Endurance, and then the following turn you play Knight with the other Wasteland open, so you could Wasteland yourself. Esperphelia, very cool. Very nice. That sounds like a sweet list. I think Esper has some sweet cards in it. Another Knight is pretty brutal. I think here we're just going to go for second Knight. And really just hold the fort. A really tricky spot for my opponent. Especially on a mulligan already as well. But it would be cool to see them get out of it. Disruptor Flute would maybe be a start. The issue with Flute is that it doesn't answer the Knights as threats. Yeah. Alright, well we get to finish on a win, which is quite nice. But obviously a pretty tough one overall. So we got up against lands. We played against like blue-black. We played against Phil on like a blue-black Fantastica deck. We played against like a painter deck. And there's obviously one more. Lands. Blue-black. Phil, Fantastica, painter. Tough. I'm going to have to go back through the video and see what it was. Anyway, let's quickly change this back. Deck was sweet. I think like potentially just that switch to the basic plains or an additional Savannah over the Lush would have been pretty cool. We got a little bit tight there with mana and the ability to actually fetch for fetchable spells or fetchable lands, sorry. But otherwise, it was pretty sweet. I would say for online, potentially a road would be a nice addition. The sideboard is obviously very heavily mixed towards combo decks, which obviously Simon was very well versed against at the ELM. But I think just additional removal, especially in Green-White, where you don't have access to, say, Grist or other removal spells, you really want to have additional copies of Swords to Plowshares online. We didn't really come up with a Night of Autumn matchup outside of lands just then, but I would say it's not really needed to change that matchup in terms of who's favored. I think that Maverick always comes into it with a pretty nice advantage. The Cubs were pretty cool. I think whenever I found myself on the front foot, Cub was involved. There were a few times where we kind of felt like stage depths could have got there, but it was a little bit slow. But obviously just really nice to have in the list. The Boseiju is always an interesting one. A really nice card to have access to and know that you could draw it when you need to have it. But obviously you don't have any way to put it into hand other than the trick, which is if you have Sylvan Scryb Ranger in play and you have Yavimaya in play, well, now all your lands are forests. So you can return any land to your hand to untap a creature. So you could potentially Reclaimer for Yavimaya and then Reclaimer for Boseiju and then return Boseiju with Scryb Ranger. A lot of effort to get into your hand, but it definitely is doable. You could also do the same sort of thing with an Icetill, get it back from the graveyard, return it to hand. Yeah, like I think the coolest thing about Maverick is that no two lists are typically the same, and obviously this was just a really cool take on Green-White that did really well, a really impressive finish at ELM. So a big congratulations to Simon once again. That's going to be me. I'll hopefully be back on the weekend at some point and play another league, most likely with a depths variant moving towards the Green-White depth space, but always happy to obviously play some Maverick on the channel and get that consistency back. But hey, huge thanks to all of you for coming in and watching. I very much appreciate it, especially those still here on YouTube. I'm going to quickly see who else is streaming and send you over their way. A huge thank you as well to Ethan MTG _ for their plays. Gabe is playing some Magic, so I'm going to send you over towards Nassif. But hey, have a great week ahead. Unfortunately, yeah, 2-3 tonight. Not the finish we wanted, but nice to just get back into the swing of things and get to enjoy a little bit of Magic again. Because it is good. Maverick is a really fun deck to sink your teeth into, and I think a really great deck for anyone to play. And I appreciate that. So catch you next time.